Today we're going to talk about the gap between business, service business and IT and how to bridge the gap. My name is Hilbrand Rustema. I'm the Managing Director of Noventum Service Management. We're a company that helps businesses, usually manufacturing companies, to grow their service business in a profitable way. And with me today is Erik Veldkamp.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Erik Veldkamp, HSO. HSO is a Microsoft solution integrator, and indeed we're going to talk about the gap between business and IT related to field service. An industry I'm in for more than 20 years, so I hope to give my perspective on that based on that experience.
So in the preparation of this, I had a look yesterday evening on what is the actual failure rate of the number of transformation programs and IT implementation or digital transformation programs, and looked at the analyst, and it's amazing. Like still 80 to 85%. The lowest estimate I've seen was 60% of projects fail to achieve their objectives.
That high?
And it could be the business, the quality of the project, the budget, or the timing.
Yeah, it depends a little bit on when we get engaged in the project or at the prospect at that time. But we see there's two phases: one before we start implementing, and one when we are implementing, and then continuous improvement after that. But if we are engaged early on, then we try to discuss the vision, the strategy, and the goals of a project by inspiring the customer of all what's available and possible. Then we design it, we empower it with defining the value we want to reach together, and then we're going to achieve it. Achieving is the implementation phase, where we also follow a very structured methodology. It's called Accelerate, where we make pieces small. We call it business releases, in order to make sure we don't run out of time or budget or scope already, let's say, during the thing. So quick wins we try to achieve. That's the ideal situation.
Yeah, so I think many of the audience may also be looking from the business side, and I kind of represent more the business perspective on things. So we start usually a lot earlier. So we look at the very beginning, when there is an idea from either top management or middle management on changing the service business. We would start with looking at what is the actual situation, what are the possibilities to improve. For example, what is their vision of the future. We would benchmark against best practices, against performance benchmarks. And then the first thing is to try and get everybody aligned on what should be the reason to change. Now, the big question that we want to discuss today is, what are the causes of this? And maybe we can find some sort of magic. After reaching some agreements with all the sort of stakeholders, the alignment, then we would design the service operating model. Could be the sales model, the delivery model, at a high level. And from there we start defining the IT requirements. The solution.
Is everybody really involved in that? All the stakeholders?
Well, that's, I would say, challenge number one. So we both yesterday we said, in preparation for this, we both made our list. And on my top of the list, number one is how to engage all the stakeholders in that vision and that sort of transformation roadmap, and to get all the different disciplines aligned. Because you have everybody, not just the service organization. It is sales, it is supply chain, it is finance, marketing, all these different sort of silos sometimes in an organization. They are somehow involved in this. It will touch them. And the IT organization, they also have all kinds of strategies, targets, and objectives. Before you even can consider implementing any system or even choosing a system, you need to have everybody aligned on the business side. Very clear. If you don't do that, you cannot set the right priorities, and eventually you start making the wrong choices. What is your number one?
Well, related to what you just said, indeed, we see that some organizations have troubles in understanding what they really need. In other words, understanding the question behind the question. Sometimes we also fail to dive a step deeper into that. Another thing we do see is that we see over time a change in scope, especially. To give you an example, we had a construction company where we have been engaged with for a while already, where we said, okay, this is your organization, this is what you want to achieve. At the same time, and we were not even aware of that, they responded to a public tender of the Amsterdam airport. They, during our, let's say, project, before we started to implement anything, won that tender. Well, that all of a sudden changed everything. Well, first of all, the timeline to get something live, but also the scope, and accordingly the budget. Well, those are things which we couldn't foresee, but have big impact. In this case, they didn't result into bad things at all, but these things happen in every project.
On my number 2 on my list of the causes, the expectations that managers and senior managers have nowadays of digitalization, of the the things that you can do with that new technologies are sky high. Yeah. And what we see is that IT companies that are doing the building of the application and all that, they don't necessarily have the skills or the experience to do the organizational transformation. Or the organization itself doesn't realize that is also needed at the same time.
It's true that didn't get enough attention over the last, well, many years, to be honest. We see a change there, there's more attention to that. Actually, also within our organization, we have now trained people to help manage a change process and an adoption process, which we already see the impact of that. But that's absolutely true, and actually the point you made about all the possibilities that technology brings, especially in that inspiration phase, where I talked about. Yeah, they see the unlimited possibilities.
It's like the kids in the candy store. Yeah, they want everything.
Yeah, but indeed the challenge is, besides understanding the need, building the organization to get to where you want to go to. Also reducing, let's say, your aspirations in that sense, or your expectations.
So I have a recent case that I worked with from one of my clients. They spent, I believe it was about 7 years, trying to figure out what they needed. And they had it completely driven by their IT organization. And they were trying to create this, let's say, ideal application, this ideal solution. And then they were hoping that they had a dealer organization that the dealers were going to say, "Oh, fantastic, we will adopt it." But they had, let's say, not the relevant stakeholders involved. There was no clear strategy behind it. The priorities were vague.